I think what flavor of these new Dunkin' coconut refreshers you get says a lot about you.
Really? What's it say about me?
Well, you got the refreshing golden peach because you're vibrant, fun, and positive.
Oh, what about me?
The bold purple pomegranate means you're vibrant, fun, and positive.
I take it I got this delicious pink strawberry because I'm vibrant, fun, and positive.
Yeah, it's a simple system, really.
Share the shine. Enjoy a medium Dunkin' coconut refresher for $3. Order ahead plus earn rewards. America runs on Dunkin'. Participation may vary. Limited time offer. Excludes classic Dunkin' refreshers.
Hello everyone, Dr. Judy here, Dr. Judy Goldberg, and tonight's topic, living by observing and not absorbing narcissistic abuse. So how does one observe it without absorbing all that negativity? That is tonight's question. And there are going to be many answers and mind mapping as usual. I'm Dr. Judy Rosenberg. I'm the director of the Psychological Healing Center and the founder of the Be the Cause Mind Map system for healing human disconnect. And this is a call-in show, everybody, so please feel free to call in. And I know we've got a couple of people waiting to make that call because this is such an important topic. And why, in essence, are we in pain and suffering? Because we're absorbing the psychological pain, we're absorbing the messages, we're absorbing the projections of people who are unwell, and then we become unwell. So this is a system gone terribly wrong. And so how do we prevent ourselves from absorbing the effects of narcissistic abuse? Well, first, we've got to bust the system gone wrong. So the first answer to that question is knowledge. We've got to know what is a system gone right versus a system gone wrong. So I'm going to do a little mind mapping here and help you understand what I mean by a system gone wrong. Specifically in narcissism, what happens is that the parents are themselves injured. They have a hole in the soul. They have this empty feeling that they have to fill with their defense mechanisms, their way of preventing their own pain, including filling it with taking you, your psyche, and filling your energy with their hole in the soul by, for example, making you the little adult, making you their best friend, having you fill their agenda. And one thing that I want to focus on tonight is how they project their feelings into you and how you then absorb these feelings. So let's start with mind mapping, and then we can get into projection and all those interesting psychological terms that are very helpful to understand, because knowledge is king here. Or if you want to say knowledge is queen, whatever way you want to say it, once we understand with our brain, then we can start to see what's off here. Something is really off here. So panel 1, how does it go off kilter to begin with? Let's start with panel 1, childhood wounds, and there are 5 that I concentrate on: verbal abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, emotional, physical neglect, and smothering and controlling. And narcissistic behavior and narcissistic dynamics are mainly defined by a lack of empathy. So when your parent or your parents do not connect with your feelings, when they don't put you number one, when they don't supply the narcissistic goodies, which Dr. John Bowlby, father of attachment theory, talks about, if they don't provide the eye contact, the skin contact, preferably breastfeeding, preferably a system where there are 2 parents, one primary or secondary, where there is a safety in the home, where you know that your parents are really attuned to you and mirror you and are interested in your psychological and physical and spiritual growth. If that's not all intact, then what happens is we really cannot self-regulate. And when we cannot self-regulate, what happens is that we try to turn to our mother, primary caregiver, our father or secondary caregiver, and usually they're not there for us to regulate. We turn inward, and there's this deep sense of emptiness there because it takes this attachment theory based parenting to fill us and build us and create a healthy sense of self. And then we're running on empty. And when we're running on empty, it leaves this gaping hole in the soul, which we then want to fill. And we fill it later with all kinds of things. I refer to it as filling it with drugs, sex, rock and roll. So common defense mechanisms we use are to fill it with drugs, sex, rock and roll, food, porn, cell phones, all kinds of ways that we try to defend ourselves and soothe the pain. However, we do that because we're identifying with the system gone wrong. We're absorbing it. One of the things that I was thinking about today is the phrase, nature abhors a vacuum. Nature abhors a vacuum. So if there's a sense of emptiness within, then because we want to fill it, when our parents project anything in there, we're eager to sponge it up. And that's not always a good thing, especially when the parents are not well themselves. So if we're sponging in poison, if we're sponging in negative messages, if we're sponging in all kinds of feelings that we then soak in and identify with, as I said, we're going to get sick. So how do we become an observer of this and not an absorber? So going back to knowledge, we've got to know what a healthy system looks like. We've got to identify the problem as opposed to identify with the problem. And I'm going to say that a couple of times so that you understand that. So let's say the problem is that your parents are calling you stupid. This is a common problem. People come to me all the time and say, my parents call me this name or that name, or my parents hit me, or my parents do this, or they fail to do this. So what happens is that we, as the child part of us, will quickly identify with that message, and we will absorb that message. Why? Because we idolize and we idealize our parents. Why? Because we don't know the difference. When mommy says we're stupid, we're stupid. If daddy says that we're bad and that's why he hit you, then you're bad and that's why you get hit. So you're not thinking through the eyes of the observer, you're thinking through the eyes of the absorber. So very few children will say, well, you know, mom's really got a problem here. Mom does not have very good parenting skills. What's she doing ruining my self-esteem? Or why is dad using forced discipline on me when he can have other ways to connect with me and teach me and show me and correct me? And so step number one, knowledge. Identify the system gone right versus the system gone wrong. And this is a call-in show, everybody. So I invite you to call in and we will mind that. Oh, awesome. Hello, you are here on the couch with Dr. Judy. And who am I speaking to, please?
My name is Deborah.
Did you say Elizabeth?
No, Deborah.
Deborah, hi. Thank you so much for calling in. And where are you calling from?
Vista, California.
Okay, really appreciate the call. And how do you relate to this particular topic of observing versus absorbing?
Well, my dad is verbally, physically, and spiritually abusive, and he tells me he wished he would have aborted me, and he hates me the most out of all of his kids. And he admits he's a narcissist, though, but most don't. And I stay in a room all by myself 24/7 because I'm physically ill, and that's why I'm here, because I'm old enough to get out. But that's why I'm here, because I've been sick, and he grabbed me on the weekend, and I got so tired, I just yelled. I was talking to my sister, and I got the phone, and my phone dropped. She went to grab me, and so I started fighting back, and I guess I scratched his eye or something. I don't remember that. And then my mom came out and said, "Stop it," to my dad. But my mom always lies for him. So the police came, and they arrested me for assaulting.
Oh.
Huh? They arrested me for assaulting my parents, and I went to jail.
This is tragic. This is tragic, and you know, people don't understand the entire system, so they just see the end result, which is a scratch on your father, which is considered physical abuse, maybe even elder abuse. How old is your father?
Well, I'm 65 and he's 90. And I think my age, and I've called the police multiple times. I got a social worker twice, and I keep getting turned on. You're right, the system is not helping me, and I'm very sick, and I'm trying to get out.
Okay.
And I really don't know what to do.
So Deborah, let's talk about this. Do you have to live with your parents? Is it a necessity because you're not well and they're helping you physically, or what's going on there?
Well, she just basically takes me to the doctor's once a month and picks up my medicine. And then if she goes to the store, I wanted to pick up a few things, but I never ask her. If she don't want to do it, I'll take a taxi because I don't like being even in the car with them.
Okay,
my hurt and anger is so high, I don't even like being near.
Okay, so I think this is almost like a beyond crisis situation. I'm so sorry that you have to live with your parents. So how do you prevent yourself from absorbing this? Is very difficult because you're in such close proximity. So in your case, boundaries are going to be really, really important. Keeping away, becoming as independent as humanly possible. And I highly suggest that you learn the mind map. I give out free PDF copies of my book, Be the Cause. And the more you know, the less you'll be vulnerable to absorbing all of these projections and the anger, and then everything goes into, as you know, as you've lived, chaos, defenses, and breakdowns, and then people go to jail, and then social workers and so on are not helpful, and law enforcement gets involved, but they don't know the story, and it's really a mess. So please, Deborah, I
told them I have pictures of me and that I have somewhere. I went to the hospital to get x-rays after being abused by them, but they said that's no proof that they did it. Well, that's the only people I see. I don't have friends or anything.
Deborah,
so
you've got to be very proactive here, because if you're going to leave it up to the justice system to make decisions on this, again, they don't know the whole story, and in the context from their perspective, a picture doesn't prove anything. So you don't even want to be in that position. So it's really imperative that you learn to self-soothe. And I'm just going to throw some things out to help people self-soothe. And even though I'm not a big fan of only behavior modifying and treating symptoms, it's at least a tool. And so I'm a big fan of yoga. I'm a big fan of just taking a nice hot shower or hot bath, or I'm not a great meditator, but some people really appreciate meditation, and just dialing it down, because there's this primitive part of the brain called the amygdala, and it sees red And once it crosses that threshold, it's kind of like a nerve that gets activated, and then it fires off. And once it fires off, then you lose control. So I was just saying today, who goes red first and activates in the amygdala area loses the game of life. Okay, and so keep that in mind. You don't want to lose this game. So even if you have to leave the room, you don't want to go up against your parents, particularly because they are elders. And if the cops come, they're going to probably vote for elder abuse over you because you're 65.
That's what I got.
I know.
Yeah, I got elders. And I've been living in a little place outside of their house. I never go in there unless they're asleep because I don't want to run into them to get some food.
Right.
4 days. I haven't gone in there the last 4 days. I was in jail for 20 hours, and I haven't even gone in there. And I didn't have my pain medicine. I was in so much pain. And I haven't even eaten in 4 days because I won't go in there to get my food even when they're asleep now. I'm so scared.
So look, I'm just going to leave you with the idea of get that book if you have the desire to go further with this mind map process. Get the mind map video series. It's $195. It's chock full of information. It's a good way to learn the system gone wrong and the system gone right, and you can also combine it with therapy. I've got some really wonderful new people, a licensed a person in Manitoba, Canada, and then another one who is working out of Michigan. So those of you who are Michigan residents, I have a wonderful therapist for you on staff now. And it is vital that you don't absorb, because that's what they want you to do. Remember, in the narcissistic mindset, the worse you...
They love to argue.
Pardon me?
I'm sorry. They love to argue.
Yes, they love to demean, devalue, destroy. They love to set you up so that you become dysregulated. And so this is kind of a sick formula. The worse you feel, the better they think they feel for a moment until they don't. Deborah, I'll leave some space for other people. I know some people really want to talk about this and call in. Please feel free to call me. And for those of you who do not have a copy of Be the Cause, Healing Human Disconnect, grab one. PDF is free. If you want to order it on Amazon as a paperback, you can do it. And then there's the mind map video series, the 9-panel mind map video series that I created for healing. And if you could put a picture of that up, it's a download, and it comes with a journal, it comes with a book, it comes with a complete detailed description of all the panels and how they interconnect. So thank you. I'm deeply sorry about what you're going through. Do not set yourself up for failure, okay?
Can I ask you one question quick? And then I'll hang up. I know there's other people, but I have to go to court. I'm pretty well military too, and I have to go to court. And should I just... Well, you may not be able to give me this advice. I don't really have money for a lawyer, but I'm scared to just have a public defender because I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't want to advise you on the court part of it. Okay. I'm not very good with the legal, but I know that they have people who represent individuals who don't have a lot of money. I would see what's available as representation.
Okay.
Get somebody who has you back, okay?
Okay, thank you so much.
Right. You take care, Deborah. Okay, thanks for calling.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. So this is Deborah. I appreciate you calling in. And this is an extreme case where it became so toxic that Deborah ended up in panel number 6. So if you put up panel 6, you can see that that's the end of the road. That's the breakdown. The breakdown might be violence. Breakdown is the extreme. It could be homicide, it could be suicide, it could be hitting and being violent with your family. It's tragic, and all because of panel 1 and the childhood wounds that people absorb, they react to, and then they encode in the fiber of their being. And then when they get triggered, chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. So I want to talk about a very important concept called projection and projective identification. I know I've mentioned these terms on previous episodes in terms of observing versus absorbing. What projection is about is when, let's say, a parent projects their feelings into a child or even an adult who then absorbs these feelings. So the projection is one part of the formula, the psychological dynamic, and then the absorption is called projective identification, where the other person is absorbing these messages. They're absorbing the pain. So one is vomiting the pain, if you will, and the other is absorbing the pain. Why do they absorb? Because there's a toxic tie there. Why do they absorb? Because there's a void there. Why do they absorb? Because several reasons. One of which may be they want to have a way to help their parent take out that. They want to have a depository for their parents' toxicity so that they can blame themselves. And instead of seeing their parents as less than ideal, they will blame themselves and absorb. So you can see that by knowing what's happening here, you can become one step ahead of this system gone wrong. So when you're in the presence of somebody who is projecting their pain and demeaning, for example, devaluing, destroying, insulting, so on and so forth, they're projecting their pain onto you. It's important that you become a non-permeable membrane at that point. You've got to put up your defenses. And what are defenses? Panel number 5 is a metaphor for your defenses. So you've got to get away, you've got to close down, you've got to become non-permeable, because when you're non-permeable, meaning that you don't let it in, then you are no longer an absorber, you are an observer. Now, since the okay, I'll take that call, then I'll continue on. Hi, you are on the couch with Dr. Judy, and who is this, please?
Hi, Dr. Judy, this is Robert.
Oh, very nice to hear from you. I knew you would be calling in, and I know that you're excited about this topic because you've overcome so much. So let's start by the question that you have or the thoughts that you have, and then we'll kind of get into how you became much more an observer, not an absorber, because I know that you've really grown. So do you have any thoughts or questions that you wanted to share?
Yes, I have some comments, thoughts about when you become the observer, not the absorber.
Okay.
I've actually studied Eckhart Tolle when he would talk about awareness, and this is a step ahead of this, because I identify it as watching a tornado, but you're not sucked into it, or there's a rainstorm and you have the window shut. So it's kind of, even if I find myself at work and there's a lot going on and I try not to let my thoughts get involved, I just observe it like I'm watching a movie, whereas I'm being grounded inside without feeling like triggered or someone screaming, and I'm just watching the movie play out, which, is been, I call it like a sanity, because it's putting you in perspective to not go into that circle of chaos. Because especially now, if we're going to talk about my the subject that I know a lot of, which is narcissistic abuse, you need a lot more practice because it tends to affect your insides when you're around that, even nonverbal, just that energy. So that's when the mind map plays in. But even with the mind map, you could always fall through a couple panels. You have to stay centered by just watching the, all the world is a stage, they say. So that pretty much, that's my thoughts on it. And as well as the abuse part, you could see someone who's in a really bad mood and they could, let's say, snap at you or something, whether it's a red light or something. And you're looking at them almost as a 5-year-old, and you don't trigger one of their panels and say, okay, let me reactivate, go to their level. You just take a deep breath and just observe, and it's everyday life. It's something we could use every moment, but we forget, like I'm only human as well. I still forget.
Robert, that's a really good point, that other people, not only you or me or the people listening, have wounds and reactions and negative core beliefs. And so there's no point in getting embroiled and then triggering them so that they can become more dysregulated, and then that triggers you to become more dysregulated. I like the way you put it, watching a movie, standing in the background, watching that tornado, letting the tornado just spin down, right? It'll take a while, but eventually it loses momentum and it just does spin down. Same with human emotion. We are always thinking when we're in the worst of it that this will never pass. Well, it does. That's probably why I like yoga so much, because they're asking us to hold this pose and I'm dying in there, and I do hot 8 yoga with a mask. This is a lot of fun. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know about this. I want to get out of here. And then I don't. I just stay with it. And then I remind myself that this feeling will pass. And so I become, get through the class, because every once in a while I remember I'm just going to be an observer of my pain and discomfort, and I'm just going to keep observing it, and then I'll get through it. So I just love this watching a movie kind of a way to put it. And Robert, you've done so much work. I just want to acknowledge you've been
I have done. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. And so
I've come a long way.
Yes, you have.
And I remember my first time I called you was Happy Narcissistic Mother's Day. And I was thinking about calling last week, but I did not want to give that woman any more of my energy. So I did watch last week's show, but I was pretty excited about this topic because it's so easy to just get annoyed. Like, let's say, the dog's barking real loud, and then you feel, you're worried about what's outside. But then when you just watch, you're like, okay. And it's also a calming, it keeps you very grounded and centered, which is what we strive for, mind, body, and soul, and definitely.
And Robert, one of the things that Robert and I share in common is our deep love of animals, dogs in particular. And Robert has a beautiful dog that he sends me pictures of on a regular basis. Her name is Jeannie, right? Jean or Jeannie?
Jean, yes. I was watching, I love old Hollywood, so I named her after Jean Harlow. I was watching one of those movies, and she truly is the light of my life. And through even PTSD, or just having anxiety, like sometimes just not wanting to go to work, and you get frustrated with daily life. Just having her near me, it's just such an unconditional love that, as we know with my past, I didn't have much experience with unconditional love at all. And I've experienced it through my dog, and also being a parent through being a parent with her. And then my past life, which meaning past before I did the mind map, before I took that yellow brick road, I didn't know how to feel that unconditional love. You mentioned it you open up a chakra, and you allow that to enter your life. And then once you allow it, you kind of get repulsed by people that don't have that, or repulsed, or you just don't want to be around that because you could feel that toxicity.
Yes, and you no longer want to absorb it. It's just that when we've been violated, when we've been penetrated emotionally, sexually, physically, it shatters our boundaries. And so we're more likely to absorb even toxic energy. And so when that becomes the case, then it's really hard to become an observer. And that's why you did all of this work. And another way to become that observer and dial down the amygdala and soften that complex PTSD, because that's what it is. It's violation after violation. Over the years, you develop complex PTSD, which from a mind map perspective, I call it old PTSD that's chronic and unhealed. And there's nothing more nurturing than the unconditional love of animals. And I think that is just a wonderful way to become that observer and not that absorber, because that animal has your heart, you have the animal's heart, and you have each other's back. And sometimes it takes having somebody be by your side, even if it's of a different species, to give you that strength of mind and calm you down. And if you don't mind staying on for another minute, because I want to explain this projective identification. So I remember when you were in a place where whatever happened to you, you would question, well, why is my father doing this, or why this, or why that? And you finally figured out that is immaterial. They are who they are, and it is what it is, and you're never going to cure them. And the deep why.
And they have no remorse.
And pardon me?
They have no remorse, and they would do it all over again.
Correct. That's right, because they have no ability to self-correct, self-reflect. They don't have the empathy that it takes to really feel the effect that they've had on you. So that's why their way of dealing with their pain is to project that pain, particularly into people who will absorb that pain, identify with that pain. It's almost like they're evacuating their pain into you, and you suck it in, and you get sick, and for a moment they feel better, but they don't really, because if they really felt better, then they wouldn't need to do it over and over again. So it becomes this sick addiction where they're evacuating, you're absorbing, you get sicker, and then they feel their pain again, or they're upset, and then they do it to you again. And this is a real toxic tie and a vampiring effect. And then you repeat it again. You do the what the Freud by selecting people into your life who replicate this horrific system gone wrong. So people will come in and share their panel 1 wounds about their parents, and lo and behold, they picked somebody into their life that's a passive aggressive covert narcissist, or an overt narcissist, or somebody that they are now absorbing the pain of. Many people who have gone through this abuse become people pleasers, and it's their way of controlling the system by this sort of a deal that if I fix you and I please you, then you will love me. Well, right, Robert? Don't hold your breath on that one. Correct?
Well, I pretty much always knew that I never expected them to ever say, I'm sorry or apologize.
Correct.
It was more about dodging their venom and the coldness and the just pure evilness of their hatred towards me, which was very obvious, because I didn't mold into what they wanted me to be, which was very corrupt, very abusive, verbally, physically, not so much physically, emotionally. And then even with when there was sexual abuse, I was molested at 14, and just hearing my father say, well, you knew what you were doing.
Yeah.
You put yourself in that situation, and what do you want me to do about it? He said. So I always kind of knew that I didn't fit in that role, and I never expected them to say, oh, I love you just the way you are, or I have you back. It was kind of more of just that survival thing that kept me going, that just kept me going. It's just to try to live each day, even though my insides felt complete darkened by their darkness.
And
literally.
It was a while ago now that when something like that happened to you, be thoroughly thrown off kilter, and now you can just observe it and say, what the Freud is that? Wow. And just
horrible parenting.
Yeah, horrible parenting. And one of the discussions I had actually today with a patient is the aspect of apology. Now, I'm not a big fan of the apology unless there's a correction in the behavior, because you could just say, oh, I'm sorry, and repeat behavior is evidence that the apology isn't sincere, because you can't keep apologizing and then re-victimizing and apologizing and redoing that whole cycle. At some point, there's got to be a self-reflect and self-correct part of this system. I think that in the case of the person who's been narcissistically injured and is now exhibiting narcissistic traits, I believe that they believe that I'm sorry means I'm guilty, shame on me, I'm a terrible person. They don't have the concept, they don't have the consciousness that sorry means feeling for the other person and correcting. So it always goes back to me. I'm sorry means an admission of a bad. And that's one of my ideas as to why they don't say it.
Well, also you really have to, that's when you have to trust the voice within, because many times when I was working in the family business with my sister, she would go on these rages with me of absolutely nothing, and it became so violent. I felt I would defend myself and just try to say what I had to say, but then it became to the point that I would say, look, I don't want to work with you. I don't want to be around you. And she would say, oh, please, I'm sorry, just get over it. But I knew deep down she wasn't sorry, and I knew she had no remorse. But
right.
Then it became, oh, so now you're going to cause trouble. They manipulate it, and then they flip it. So you could also tell, but by just being the observer and not the absorber, you could tell when somebody is not sincere at all. You could feel it. You could see it in their eyes. You could pick up on it. I remember you did a show called nonverbal communication, and they could say they're sorry, but when you feel the nonverbal energy, you know that they're not sorry. They're sorry that it's an inconvenience to them, but they have they don't have any remorse, especially when it cuts below the belt, when it becomes verbal abuse, emotional abuse, or up to even, yeah.
I was just going to mention gaslighting, because gaslighting is a way to drive the other person crazy, where they might deny something and then you question yourself because you're a good person. You think, well, did I do something wrong? Could I have done it better? Could I have said it better? Is that actually true? And so they get you in this crazy making kind of gaslighting, and that's when you start absorbing everything. And so if you're onto it, see, this is all about being psychologically smart. And I look at the mind map as a way to correct your psychoperceptual lens, so that when you view the world through the mind map, you are actually getting 20/20 psychoperception. I'm posting something on Instagram. By the way, if you didn't know, I'm on Instagram, and I occasionally do posts. Sometimes I do my own artwork, which I really enjoy. And my quotes, my Dr. Judy isms are up there, and they're even in my book. I have a whole section in the back called Dr. Judy isms, where I have my own languaging, like the psychovirus or the double dungeon of darkness. And they're just really good ways of delivering concepts that might take sentence after sentence to explain. And once you get the languaging, you can just capture that thought in a more.
You mentioned just now gaslighting, and that's when an enlightened witness has to pretty much pull the curtain off, and then you see how much of a fraud it is, and even if it's one person that says, that's horrible, they're talking to you like that, or they're controlling you like that. I mean, what is wrong with that? And then you don't feel so, you have that knot in your stomach knowing something's off, but then just to have someone validate you and say, yes, this is crazy, that person becomes the enlightened witness to the gaslighting, and right. That helps you pretty much clean up the correct lens of perception.
And Robert, when you're as steeped into the knowledge as you are, because you have read my book over and over, we've been talking for years, you've been on several of my shows, and you've gone through the process. Now you can think like a shrink, and you can catch it. That's why I said knowledge is king, knowledge is queen, because when you're onto it, you're not a sucker anymore for the gaslighting. You're not a sucker for absorbing and swallowing the emotional projections and identifying with them and getting sick yourself. And so, one of my favorite quotes in my book is Einstein: smart people solve problems and geniuses prevent them. So by knowing the system and what's wrong, that expression, there's something rotten in the state of Denmark, that was Shakespeare saying something's really off here. And I want everyone who's listening to catch what's off here, and instead of just buying in and absorbing the pain and questioning your own mind, which is real crazy making, get the truth and clean up your psychoperceptual lens, so that you can see straight and you can make the distinction between lies and truths, and you can make distinction between systems gone right and systems gone wrong. So you're becoming quite an expert. Yeah.
Thank you, and through you and the video series, I mean, I love the 9-panel lecture. It's truly fascinating, and it opened my eyes up to everything. But in terms of narcissistic abuse, yes, which is my past life, meaning after the mind map, now that I'm in this phase, it seems like, which isn't a bad thing, that the recovery is is a lifelong process for the next term in your life, meaning soothing music or spending time with your pets, in my case, the dog, or walks in nature or sitting by the ocean. That kind of puts you back to the universe or whatever you want to call it. And it opens up that, kind of heals a lot of that, stains that could still linger. And for me, sometimes it does come in the form of dreams, and they're not pretty much, sometimes the dreams could be cloudy, they could be vivid, but I do feel that past emotions of just my body clenching. And that's probably from about 38 years, I'm 41, of just being in that situation and now breaking out of it. That would be the CPSD, correct?
And the body keeps the score. There's a book that Dr. Bessel van der Kolk wrote called The Body Keeps the Score, and there's just a lot of writing about psychosomatic, and that's what the body does, is that if we can't speak it, if we can't prevent it, if we can't defend against it, then our muscles tighten, our jaws tighten, we get headaches and all kinds of aches and stomach aches. This is particularly evident in children. I see this just recently, a patient whose son is so psychosomatic. It's just really sad. He's gained a bunch of weight, and the poor little guy has stomach aches, and he's thrown up, and this is not something that an MD can just simply say, well, unfortunately, he's got stomach problems. This is, again, when we see through the lens of the symptom only and we don't connect it to the cause, then we're giving the kid antacids or changing the diet instead of addressing the psychological climate and giving this child tools to prevent him or herself from absorbing the messages of the parents, the horrible messages that then sometimes result, unfortunately, in the child committing suicide. This is the end game, where a child feels that they shouldn't have been born, they're stupid, they're a curse, they're damaged, they're unlovable, no matter what, they have no more power in the world. And truly, this is so tragic. So you all know, if you haven't heard me say so already, I would love to get the mind map into the school system, even if it's a private setting, because there's so much red tape with the public setting. So if you are a teacher, educator, and you're watching this, then I'm perfectly open to figuring out how to teach the mind map to children in a very simple format so that they can prevent themselves from absorbing all these horrific messages and get their minds straight early on in this game of life, so that they're not at the effect of their parents, even though they have to live with their parents. So Robert, thank you so much for calling in and sharing your thoughts and your evolution through this mind map journey. And I know I'll hear from you because we keep in touch. And very, very
yes, and I love you, Dr. Judy, and I just yeah, and you truly are. You're one of the most influential people in my life, and I just I'm so fortunate that I connected with you all those years ago. I'll never forget, we connected on the book The People of the Lie, and then through your shows, and you heard me at my worst when I was scared of talking to my mom on Mother's Day, and you said, well, then don't do it if it's going to really hurt you. And I remember you were an enlightened witness then, and you're amazing, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of the night, and I will talk to you
Thank you very
very soon.
much. Thanks, Robert. Appreciate it.
Okay, good night.
Good night. So I hope everyone is getting this, that the more you learn about it, the more you process through your feelings, the better you become at setting boundaries, the better you identify your own childhood wounds and your reactions and encodings, meaning your triggers, the more you're in a power position to not go down the rabbit hole of reactions and breakdowns and so on. And then it becomes very interesting when you take space from these dynamics and you just sit there and say, wow, I could see it. I could see how this person is trying to trap me into activating a bunch of negative core beliefs, or I can see how this person wants to drag me into this painful demean, devalue, destroy kind of dynamics, and then you pull out. Isn't that a beautiful thing when you could just pull out and say, you know, how unfortunate, and I'm not going to fix this person. I'm just going to absorb the situation. And by sparing your own mental health, by not embroiling yourself into somebody's poor mental health, you gain freedom and you gain clarity and you gain sanity. So unless there's another question.
We do have another caller.
Oh, okay. I'll take this last caller. Hi, you are on the couch with Dr. Judy. And what is your name, please?
Hi, Dr. Judy. My name is Pani.
Pani, nice to meet you. Hi, where are you calling from?
Nice to meet you too.
Thank you.
I'm calling from San Diego, California.
Okay. So what is going on with you that inspired the call?
Well, I want to thank you for all the shows and all the awareness you are giving your audiences first. And then recently I found out that my mother is a narcissist, and that came as a shock to me, especially. So I'll give you a quick background. I know we don't have much time. So when I was 10 months old, my mother got a scholarship in another country, and she basically left me and went for education. And so I was left inside in a like 24/7 daycare.
Wow.
And because my dad was working, so he could like just come and pick me up on the weekend. And so just imagine a 10 months old just being left somewhere that she doesn't know anything. And then after 6 months, my dad's mother, she came and she took care of me. So basically, and until my mother came, and then for all my life, she always like, whenever if I did something wrong or, so anyway, she always told me like, I wish you were not born, or I wish I would have left you forever, you know, when I went to study and all these things. And the relationship is very strange. And I had no idea, because after like, I was always angry at her, but I had this very, very love and hate relationship with her, because I was dependent. It seems like when she came back, then I didn't know her because I was 2.5. But then I had this like I wanted to attach to her constantly, you know, I have this, like, I don't want to, and it was constantly pleasing her. And so I didn't know about this whole narcissist and why I have rage and anger.
Right. The pleasing her was your little girl best attempt at getting her to love you, you see. And what do we have? We can't offer them money. We can't offer them, you know, a home-cooked meal. Love me, I'll cook for you. Love me, I'll pay you. You know, so what do? We try to please them in any way possible. Back to Alice Miller. The child would rather be the bad one, thinking, I have to do tricks to please mommy, and it's all my fault that mommy left. You see, these are the horrible interpretations. I'm just curious more than anything else. Are you Hungarian?
No, I'm Persian.
Persian, okay, because that's a very Hungarian name also. Okay. And so one of the aspects of the mind map is that we take into consideration Persian, Hungarian, Chinese, Indian culture. I'm getting at cultural wounds matter, because within each culture are certain demands and certain rules and certain roles. So we don't know what part the Persian culture may have played, because as I know, the Persian culture is very goal-oriented and very educationally oriented. And so people tend to respect people with higher education, the doctors, the achievers. So, all of this plays into it. Every bit of it, your mother, your father, your grandparents, and so on. And so in your case...
That is true. It is very goal-oriented, but I don't know any of the mothers around me that, Persian mothers, I'd never met any of them, that they left their child, that young.
Yeah, I have to agree. I've worked with a lot of Persian patients, and I have not heard too many examples like yours, where the mother actually left and came back at age 2 when you were 2.5. So thank goodness you had a grandmother. Was she loving and warm and secure?
Yes. Yeah, she was. And then my dad, in this relationship, he always plays like enabler. Like I'm learning about these things. And the reason I called because tonight, because I'm finally, so once I found out my mother was a narcissist, and I was always like, why am I so angry? And recently we went through so much, some chaos in my family between me, my mother, my brother, and all those things. And one of my cousins, she recommended that I see a therapist. And when I started seeing therapist, she explained to me how she is a narcissist, and I started learning, and I learn about your show, and I started listening. I'm going through emotional, now that I learned about it. At first I got really angry at my mother, how because of, her narcissist personality treated me this way.
I know we're very, very short on time, and I of course don't mean to cut you off, but I want to say that the anger is very normal. And this anger has to be processed therapeutically so it doesn't sit in your mind, body, soul. And I also want you to know that we have a wonderful Persian therapist on our staff. Okay, so if you feel comfortable with somebody of your culture, and please do reach out to me, and I'm happy to tell you more and direct you. And we have people at different fee scales, so I always try to make it work out for people so they can do this work. And the key with you is to understand that all of your feelings are legitimate given what happened. Okay, what will probably never happen, or very slim chances, that she owns her own stuff and says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I made a terrible mistake by leaving you." I don't know, but I don't think that commonly occurs, as you might know.
No, she will not. That's why I was angry too. But then there's so much into the story. But anyway, now tonight I was talking to her, and after, gaining knowledge about this whole thing, when she was talking about something and, kind of triggering my points, I actually observed. I didn't get mad at all.
Okay.
So I think I'm going through those emotions, and I'm kind of happy that, I'm listening, and I can't wait to buy your book about, you said you have videos and books.
Yeah, I have the Mind Map video series, completely easy to follow. It goes with the book, and you can add therapy to it. Of course, the more modalities you have to process your feelings, the better. And I think, again, the more you understand, the less of an absorber you'll be, because your eyes will be wide open, and you'll be able to say, wow, that's sick. Wow, that's crazy, and I didn't
totally.
Okay, so we'll follow up with you, and thank you so much.
Okay.
I know we're out of time, and I very, very much appreciate it. And keep this going, where you're observing and not absorbing, and you're busting the crazy. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Dr. Jody. Good night.
Good night. And everybody, I really appreciate you being tuned in and learning and evolving. And for those of you who are familiar with the work, to understand that this is a continual, lifelong system that you can continually use to straighten out your psychoperception. And for those of you who don't know much about it, please grab the free copy of the book and know that there's 24/7 help. Just call and we will answer questions, and there are free consultations and a lot of resources. So thank you very, very much for tuning in. Good night, everybody.
This podcast is brought to you by Progressive. Are you thinking more about how to tighten up your budget these days? Drivers who save by switching to Progressive save over $700 on average, and customers can qualify for an average of 6 discounts when they sign up. A little off your rate each month goes a long way. Get a quote today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National annual average insurance savings by new customers surveyed in 2020. Potential savings will vary. Discounts vary and are not available in all states and situations.
Breaking up is hard to do, but when it comes to your wireless carrier, you should have left a while ago. You deserve better. Xfinity Mobile. Break free from the big three.
Get unlimited with 5G included for $30 a month when you get 4 lines on Xfinity Mobile. Prices may vary and are subject to change. Reduced speeds at 20 gigabytes per line.